My wife cheated on me with a man I didn't even know, lied with her mother to destroy me, and tried to make me look crazy in court. But I exposed their scheme, took everything back, and rebuilt from ashes. The whiskey burned, but I liked it that way. I sat alone in my new apartment, the kind of place you'd call modern if you were being generous. Bare walls, a leather couch that still smelled like the store, and a view of Boston's skyline that made the rent feel almost worth it. The glass in my hand was half empty, the amber liquid catching the dim light from a single lamp. I wasn't drinking to forget. I was drinking to remember. It all started with a smile in a bookstore. Her smile, Emily's. That moment felt like the beginning of everything, like the world had clicked into place. Now, sitting here, lived in a silence that wasn't heavy anymore. It was freedom. Betrayal had carved me hollow, but it also let me rebuild. The man I was back then, he's gone. The man I am now, he's just getting started. I took another sip, letting the heat settle in my chest. The past was a story I could finally close, but not before I told it one last time. Emily and I didn't date. We dove. By week 2, we were stealing weekends in Cape Cod, her laughing as we tripped through dunes, me pretending I could keep up with her wit over lobster rolls. She'd sketch ideas for ad campaigns on bar napkins. I'd ramble about app features that might change the world or just crash and burn. Every moment felt like it was ripped from a movie where the colors are too bright and the music never stopped. We swapped dreams like trading cards. She wanted to start her own agency someday, call it Spark. I wanted to build something people couldn't live without, a legacy in code. We'd lie on her couch, her head on my chest, planning a future that felt close enough to touch. I met her sister, Tessa, a nurse with a sharp tongue and a laugh that filled rooms. Tessa sized me up over brunch, then grinned. "You're not half bad, Jake." My best friend, Marco, wasn't so quick to sign off. We'd been tight since college, him studying law while I wrestled with algorithms. Over beers at a dive bar, he leaned back, eyes narrow. "She's perfect, huh? Too perfect, maybe." I laughed it off. Marco always played skeptic, but I was too far gone to care. Emily wasn't just perfect. She was oxygen. 3 months in, we were cooking dinners together, her teasing my obsession with spicy chili while I dodged her attempts to organize my chaotic desk. By month 5, I caught her humming to my old jazz records, and I knew. I bought a ring. A simple gold band with a diamond that cost more than my car. Month 6, on a snowy night in her apartment, I got down on one knee. She said yes before I finished asking, tears in her eyes. And we fell into each other like the world could wait. Marco called it a whirlwind, Tessa called it fate. I called it everything. Emily was my partner, my spark, my reason to get up early and stay up late. I didn't see the cracks forming, didn't want to. All I saw was her. And that was enough. Rain tapped the windows of the Boston bookstore, a cozy hole in the wall on Beacon Street where I'd spent too many afternoons dodging the world. I was thumbing through a dog-eared copy of Slaughterhouse-Five, half reading, half wondering why I kept coming back to places that smelled like old paper and regret. Then, I saw her. She stood by the fiction shelf, auburn hair catching the glow of a table lamp, her fingers brushing the spine of a book like she was greeting an old friend. Emily Lawrence, I'd learn later. She glanced up, caught my eye, and smiled, a smile that didn't just light up the room but rewired it. I froze, the kind of freeze you feel when life hands you a moment you know you'll replay years. "Vonnegut fan?" she asked, nodding at the book in my hand. Her voice was warm, like she'd already decided I was worth talking to. "More like a guy who keeps rereading the same book to avoid new ones," I said, surprising myself with the honesty. She laughed, soft but real. "That's a dangerous habit. You might miss something worth reading." We talked. Books first, her love for Toni Morrison, my weird obsession with sci-fi paperbacks. Then it spilled over into everything else. Her job as a creative director at an ad agency, my pivot from software engineering to building apps no one used yet. The rain didn't let up, so we grabbed coffee at the shop next door, then dinner at a dim Italian place where the wine was cheap and the conversation wasn't. She had this way of listening, leaning in just enough to make you feel like your words mattered. I told her about coding late nights, chasing ideas that might never pan out. She told me about sketching campaigns on napkins, turning chaos into art. By the time we stepped back into the drizzle, I was hooked. Not just on her beauty, though God, those green eyes could stop traffic, but on how she made me feel, seen, alive, like I could be more than a guy killing time in a bookstore. I asked for her number. She gave it with that same smile, and I walked home wondering if the universe had just thrown me a lifeline. Cynthia Lawrence swept into our lives like a cold front. Emily invited me to dinner at her mother's Back Bay townhouse, a place that screamed old money, polished wood, crystal chandeliers, and art that probably cost more than my entire net worth. I wore my best blazer, but I still felt like a kid playing dress-up. Emily squeezed my hand as we walked in, her smile nervous but warm. "She's intense, but she means well," she whispered. Cynthia greeted us at the door, a vision in a tailored black dress, her silver blonde hair pinned like she'd stepped out of a magazine. Her smile was sharp, like she was sizing me up for a fight I didn't know I'd signed up for. "Jake, the app developer," she said, her voice smooth as glass. "Emily's told me so much." Dinner was a performance. Cynthia led the conversation, asking about my work with a curiosity that felt like a trap. "Apps are so ephemeral, aren't they?" she said over her salmon, her eyes locked on mine. "No offense, of course. It's just hard to imagine building a legacy on something so intangible." I forced a laugh, said something about innovation, but her words stuck like a splinter. Emily stayed quiet, nodding along as her mother spoke. I tried to change the subject, asked about Cynthia's charity work, but she pivoted back, probing my upbringing, my parents' jobs, like she was building a case. By dessert, she was talking prenups. "It's just practical," she said, sipping her wine. "Protects everyone. Emily's inheritance, your projects." Her pause was deliberate, and I felt Emily tense beside me. I didn't fight it. A prenup made sense, fair's fair. But I had one condition. "If either of us cheats," I said, looking at Emily, not Cynthia. "The guilty party pays 75 grand. Emily nodded, her eyes soft, trusting. Cynthia's lips twitched, like she was amused. "Bold," she said. "I like that." We left with her blessing, but it felt more like a warning. In the car, Emily apologized, said her mom was just protective. I kissed her, told her it was fine, but Cynthia's voice lingered, cold and precise, like she'd already decided I wasn't enough. The vineyard wedding in Vermont was perfect, if you ignored how it wasn't ours. Cynthia had choreographed every detail: white roses, string quartet, a cake that looked like it belonged in a museum. Emily glowed in her dress, and when she said "I do," I believed we'd conquer anything. But the reception felt like Cynthia's victory lap, her friends toasting her vision while I stood there smiling like a prop. We moved into a sleek condo in Boston Seaport, picked by Emily, or more accurately, by Cynthia's suggestions. I didn't mind at first. It had a view, a gym, a life that felt like winning. But decisions started slipping out of my hands. Cynthia's designer redid the place. Marble counters, abstract art I didn't get. "It's an investment," Emily said, echoing her mother. Holidays were Cynthia's domain too. Christmas in Aspen, not my family's scrappy Maine cabin. Summer in the Hamptons, not the camping trips I loved. Emily deferred to her mom every time, her voice soft but firm, like she was reciting a script. "It's just easier," she'd say when I pushed back. Easier for who? I wanted to ask, but I didn't. I loved her too much to start fights over beach houses. At dinner, Cynthia's critiques sharpened. My app wasn't scaling fast enough. My jeans were too casual for our circle. Emily never defended me, just changed the subject. I started feeling like a guest in my own life. Welcome, but not essential. We still laughed, still made love, but there was a distance now, like she was pulling away while standing still. I tried talking to her one night, over takeout in our too-quiet kitchen. "Are we good?" I asked, hating how small my voice sounded. She smiled, touched my hand. "Of course, Jake. I'm just stressed at work." I believed her because I wanted to, but the truth was creeping in. I was married to Emily, but Cynthia was calling the shots. And somewhere along the way, I'd started to disappear. Cynthia's visits became a ritual I dreaded. She'd show up unannounced, her heels clicking like a countdown. "Just checking in," she'd say, her eyes sweeping our condo for flaws. The coffee table was too cluttered. Our wine choices were pedestrian. Once, she rearranged the kitchen while I was at a meeting, and Emily just shrugged. She likes things her way. It wasn't just Cynthia's presence, it was how Emily changed around her. My wife, the woman who'd once sketched wild ideas on napkins, started parroting her mother's lines. "Maybe we should upgrade the furniture," she'd say, "or Mom thinks we're wasting money on your app." I'd bite my tongue, but each comment chipped away at me. Was this Emily talking, or Cynthia through her? Our evenings grew quiet, no more jazz records, no more late-night talks about nothing and everything. Emily worked longer hours, her phone buzzing constantly. When I asked about it, she'd smile, too quick, too polished. "Just the agency, big campaign." I wanted to believe her, but her warmth felt rehearsed now, like she was performing for an audience I couldn't see. Intimacy faded. We'd kiss, but it was perfunctory, like checking a box. I'd reach for her in bed, and she'd murmur about being tired. Conversations turned into logistics, schedules, bills, what Cynthia wanted for dinner next week. I caught myself wondering if Emily's love had ever been mine, or if I'd just been a placeholder in her mother's grand plan. One night, alone in our living room, I poured a whiskey and stared at the skyline. The city glittered, but it felt cold. I thought back to the bookstore, her smile, the way she'd made me feel like I could be enough. Now, I wasn't sure who she was or who I was to her. The worst part? I didn't know if I was losing her to someone else or if I'd already lost her to Cynthia's shadow, looming larger every day. Emily's late nights piled up, each one a brick in the wall between us. She'd breeze in after 10, smelling of perfume I didn't recognize, her excuses thin as tissue. Client dinner ran long, she'd say, or Tessa needed to vent. I'd nod, but my gut churned. Something was off, and it wasn't just Cynthia's shadow. Anyway, I started noticing things. A Neiman Marcus bag tucked in the closet, stuffed with silk dresses she never wore for me. Spa receipts for treatments she hadn't mentioned. Dated nights she'd claimed to be working. I wasn't snooping, not yet. But the evidence was piling up, loud as a siren. Then came the phone call. It was a Tuesday, her phone buzzing on the counter while she showered. I ignored it at first, but it kept going, insistent. I glanced at the screen. No name, just a number I didn't know. I picked up, heart pounding. A man's voice, smooth and familiar, like he'd called 100 times. "See you tomorrow, babe." Click. I stood there, frozen, the words burning into me. I didn't confront her. Not then. I needed proof, something solid to hold on to before I tore our world apart. But the call lit a fuse. I started watching closer, her quick glances at her phone, the way she'd angle it away when texting. One night I found a parking stub in her coat pocket, dated for a hotel bar across town, same night she'd said she was with Tessa. I called Tessa the next day, casual as I could manage. "You and Em have fun last week?" Tessa paused, confused. "I haven't seen her in a month, Jake." That was it. The thread I'd been pulling unraveled. I didn't know who the man was, didn't know how deep it went, but I knew Emily was lying, and not just to me, to herself, to the life we'd built. I poured another whiskey, staring at the condo that felt less like home every day. I wasn't just suspicious anymore, I was awake. I couldn't confront Emily, not yet. My head was a storm, but I needed facts, not feelings. So I started digging. One night, while she was at another client dinner, I slipped into her home office. The room was pristine, all white furniture and framed awards, but I wasn't there to admire it. I rifled through her desk, heart hammering like I was breaking into Fort Knox. In a locked drawer, key hidden under a paperweight, I found the truth. Receipts for dinners at places we'd never been, always for two. A handwritten note, tucked in an envelope, signed C with a heart. "Can't wait for Saturday." Hotel reservations under her name, one-night stays at boutique spots downtown, paid in cash. My stomach twisted. But I kept going, photographing everything with my phone. Each scrap was a cut, but I needed the bleeding to know I wasn't crazy. I didn't sleep that night. The evidence sat heavy, undeniable, but I still wanted to believe there was an explanation. Maybe it was work, a misunderstanding, maybe I was wrong. By morning, I knew I wasn't. I called Marco, my voice low as I spilled it all over coffee at a diner. He listened, his lawyer face on, no judgment, just focus. "You got proof?" he said, tapping his mug. "Don't tip her off yet. Build the case, texts, calls, bank records. If it's what you think, that prenup's your leverage." I nodded, but it wasn't just about the money. 75 grand wouldn't fix what was breaking. It was about knowing, really knowing who I'd married. I started tracking more, her phone's location when she worked late, cross-referenced with the receipts. I hacked into our joint account, not proud but desperate, and found transfers to a card I didn't know about. Small but enough to hide something. Every find hurt, but it also sharpened me. I wasn't the guy in the bookstore anymore, blind with love. I was someone new, someone who saw the cracks and wasn't afraid to pry them open. Emily didn't know it yet, but I was done being played. Emily insisted on the dinner at Chez Lumiere, a glitzy French restaurant where the chandeliers cost more than my car. Family night, she called it, her smile too bright, like she was selling me something. Cynthia would be there, Tessa too. I agreed, but my gut screamed trap. I'd been piecing together her lies, receipts, notes, that voice on the phone, and this felt like the stage for her final act. The restaurant was all velvet and gold, waiters gliding like they were auditioning for a movie. Emily wore a red dress, stunning but calculated, her hand barely grazing mine. Cynthia sat across from us, her eyes slicing through me with every sip of her martini. Tessa, bless her, tried to keep things light, joking about hospital shifts, but the air was thick. I played along, smiling, ordering steak, acting like I didn't feel the noose tightening. Halfway through the main course, Emily cleared her throat. "Jake," she said, loud enough for the table to freeze. "We need to talk." Her voice was steady, rehearsed. This isn't working. I want a divorce. Cynthia leaned back, smug, like she'd written the script. Tessa's fork stopped midair, her eyes darting to me. The room didn't spin. It just got quiet, like the world was holding its breath. I'd seen it coming, but hearing it still stung. Not because I wanted her anymore. Love had curdled into something colder. But because she thought she could bury me here, in front of her mother's smirk and a $300 0-cent bottle of wine. "That's it?" I asked, my voice calm, almost bored. Emily blinked, thrown off. She'd expected me to beg, to crumble. She pushed on, voice rising. "You're not who I thought, Jake. We've grown apart." Cynthia nodded, her lips twitching into a smile. They wanted a scene, a public gutting. I wasn't giving it to them. I leaned back, took a sip of water and said, "Interesting timing, Em. Got anything else to confess?" The table went silent. Emily's face tightened, but she didn't answer. She didn't need to. I knew enough, and soon they'd know I wasn't the one walking away empty-handed. Emily's divorce bombshell hung in the air at Chez Lumiere, her eyes daring me to crack. Cynthia's smirk was practically carved into her face, and Tessa looked like she wanted to vanish. I didn't flinch. I'd spent weeks gathering shrapnel, receipts, notes, bank records, and I wasn't about to let them bury me in their scripted drama. I pulled my phone from my pocket, casual, as if I were checking the time. "Before we wrap this up," I said, voice steady, "let's clear the air." I tapped play on an audio file I'd saved, a recording from Emily's office phone I'd pulled off her cloud backup. Her voice filled the table, crisp and damning, talking to Cynthia. "Jake won't see it coming. We'll spin it, he's unstable, controlling. The prenup's void if he fights." Cynthia's laugh followed, cold and conspiratorial. "Make it public, darling, humiliate him." Emily's face drained of color. Cynthia's martini glass froze halfway to her lips. Tessa's jaw dropped, her eyes flicking between us. The restaurant's hum faded as nearby tables caught the audio's edge. I stopped the clip, leaned forward. "You were saying, Em? Something about growing apart?" Emily stammered. "That's..." out of context, but her voice cracked, and Cynthia's glare at her was pure venom. I didn't wait for their recovery. I stood, dropped my napkin on the table, and said, "Oh, one more thing. The joint account for this little $3,000 0-cent dinner? I froze it this morning. Good luck with the bill." Tessa choked on her wine. A waiter hovered, confused, as Cynthia's composure shattered into a tight-lipped snarl. Emily stared at her plate, hands trembling. I walked out, the cool night air hitting me like a victory lap. They'd planned to gut me in public, but I'd flipped the script. The evidence I had, texts, hotel receipts, that man's voice, was a loaded gun, and they knew I wasn't bluffing. Outside, I didn't feel joy, just clarity. The man Emily married was gone, and the one walking away wasn't looking back. They'd underestimated me, and that was their first mistake. I didn't sleep after Chez Lumiere. My apartment, bare, temporary, mine, felt like a war room. I spread out everything I'd collected, hotel receipts, bank transfers, that scrawled note signed C, the audio of Emily and Cynthia plotting. Each piece was a brick in the wall I was building. Not just for divorce, but for justice. The prenup's infidelity clause, $75,000, 0 cents, was my leverage, and I wasn't letting it slip. I met Marco at his law office the next morning, a cramped space stacked with case files and coffee cups. He listened as I laid it all out, his eyes narrowing at the evidence. "This is tight," he said, flipping through my photos. "Receipts, texts, voice memos. You've got her dead to rights, but we need to be surgical. They'll fight dirty." He recommended Rachel Simmons, a divorce attorney with a reputation for shredding liars. I liked her already. Rachel's office was sleek, all glass and steel, and she didn't waste time. "You've done half my job," she said, scanning my files. "Infidelity's clear, hotel stays, unexplained charges, that call. The audio buries their narrative." She leaned back, tapping a pen. "Cynthia's involvement complicates things. She'll push Emily to countersue, claim you coerced the prenup or some nonsense. We'll need more to lock this down." I went deeper. I pulled call logs from Emily's phone records. Thank God for shared accounts, showing repeated late-night chats with that unknown number. I cross-referenced dates with her, work trips, finding overlaps with hotel bookings. One receipt from a bar in Cambridge had a man's name scribbled on it, Colin. I didn't know him, but I'd find out. I even got Tessa to talk, off the record. She was furious with Emily, confirmed the client dinners were a lie. "I warned her," Tessa said, voice tight. "Mom's poison, but Em chose her." By week's end, my case was ironclad. Financial records showed Emily funneling money to hide her tracks. Voice memos caught her laughing about poor Jake. Every find was a gut punch, but it fueled me. I wasn't just fighting for the money, I was fighting for the truth, and I'd make sure Emily and Cynthia faced it. The courtroom smelled of polished wood and stale coffee, a sterile stage for the end of my marriage. I sat beside Rachel Simmons, my attorney, my evidence stacked like armor in her briefcase. Emily sat across the room, her face pale, eyes downcast, plain remorseful for the judge. Cynthia was there too, perched behind her, lips tight, like she could still control the script. She couldn't. The hearing started slow, legal formalities, motions filed. Emily's lawyer, a slick guy with a $500 0 haircut, spun a tale of irreconcilable differences, painting her as a woman trapped in a loveless marriage. I almost laughed. Rachel didn't flinch, just waited, her pen tapping softly. When it was our turn, she stood, voice calm but lethal. "Your Honor, we're not here for differences. We're here for breach of contract." She laid it out, piece by piece. Hotel receipts projected on a screen, dates matching Emily's work trips, bank records showing hidden accounts, transfers to cover her tracks. The audio from her office phone, her voice plotting with Cynthia to humiliate me, played crisp and clear. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Tessa, in the back, covered her mouth. Emily's lawyer objected. The judge shut him down. "Let it play," she said, eyes narrowing. Then came the phone logs, calls to that unknown number, I'd learned, a consultant at her agency. Rachel didn't stop there. She showed a photo of a note that, in heart, found in Emily's desk. "This isn't speculation," Rachel said. "This is infidelity, documented and deliberate, violating the prenuptial agreement's clause." She turned to the judge. "We request enforcement, $75,000 0 payable by..." Emily tried to speak, voice trembling. "I didn't mean..." The judge cut her off, unimpressed. Cynthia stood, trying to interject, but the gavel slammed. "Sit down, Mrs. Lawrence, or you're out." Cynthia sank back, face red, powerless for once. The judge didn't deliberate long. "The evidence is overwhelming," she ruled. "The clause stands. Ms. Lawrence owes Mr. Thompson $75,000 0. Emily's shoulders slumped, her mask cracking. Cynthia stared at me, hate in her eyes, but I didn't care. This wasn't revenge, it was truth, laid bare. I walked out of that courtroom lighter, not because of the money, but because I'd faced their lies and won. The courtroom victory didn't erase the scars, but it gave me room to breathe. I moved into a new apartment, a modest place in Cambridge with creaky floors and a view of a park. No marble counters, no Cynthia's shadow, just mine. I started unpacking the parts of myself I'd buried. My old jazz records spun again, Coltrane's filling the silence. I cooked chili so spicy it made my eyes water, laughing at how Emily would have hated it. I reconnected with friends I'd let slip away. Marco dragged me to a Celtics game, yelling at refs like old times. Tessa called, apologizing for her sister, and we grabbed coffee, swapping stories without mentioning Emily. I even dusted off my guitar, fumbling through chords until my fingers remembered. Each step felt like reclaiming ground I'd lost. Work became my anchor. Marco had an idea, a legal app to simplify contracts, make them fairer. "You code, I lawyer," he said, grinning. I dove in, nights blurring into lines of code that actually meant something. We pitched to a small VC firm, got seed funding. It wasn't world-changing yet, but it was ours, built on sweat and trust, not lies. I stopped checking Emily's socials, stopped wondering who Colin was. The $75,000 0 hit my account, but I didn't touch it. Just let it sit, a reminder I'd stood my ground. I wasn't angry anymore, just done. I started running in the park, mornings crisp with purpose. One day I bumped into an old college buddy, now a chef. He invited me to a cooking class, silly but fun. I burned the risotto and didn't care. Life wasn't perfect, but it was mine. No second guessing, no waiting for approval. I'd loved Emily, or the idea of her. But that Jake was gone. This one? He was learning. To love the quiet, the work, the man in the mirror who'd fought his way back, and for the first time in years, that was enough. I was grabbing coffee at a shop near Harvard Square, the kind of place where students debated philosophy over overpriced lattes, when I overheard it. Two women at the next table, strangers, gossiping about a total mess in Back Bay. "Cynthia Lawrence," one said, stirring her cappuccino. "You know, the charity queen? Her daughter's divorce tanked their finances. They're selling the townhouse." I froze, my cup halfway to my lips. Emily's name came up next. Something about her agency folding, creditors circling. The women laughed, called it karma. I didn't join in. I didn't feel the old ache, no surge of anger or triumph. Just nothing. A quiet pity, maybe, for the chaos they'd built themselves. I paid my tab and left, the conversation fading behind me. Walking through the square, I thought about the bookstore where it all started. That smile I'd once thought was my future. It felt like someone else's life now. The air was sharp, fall turning to winter, and I zipped my jacket, my breath fogging. I passed a busker playing a slow guitar riff, dropped $1 in his case, and kept going. No rush, no wait. Emily and Cynthia were echoes, growing fainter every day. I didn't need to know their story anymore. I had my own. Marco texted about our app, a new feature he wanted to brainstorm. I grinned, texting back, already thinking of code. The world was loud, messy, alive, and I was part of it again. I stopped at a crosswalk, the city pulsing around me. A kid on a skateboard zipped by, laughing. I smiled, small but real, and stepped forward. Whatever Emily and Cynthia were facing, it wasn't my burden. I was free, not just from them, but from the version of me who'd needed their approval. The light changed, and I walked on, the echo gone for good. I was rearranging my apartment, shoving books onto shelves and tossing out junk I didn't need, when I found it. A faded photo tucked inside an old coding manual. Me, 3 years back, standing on a trail in Vermont, mid-hike, grinning like the world was mine. It was early in the marriage, before Emily's lies, before Cynthia's shadow. I looked at the guy in the picture, his messy hair and dumb smile, and almost didn't recognize him. I didn't toss it. Instead, I bought a cheap frame from a corner store and set it on my desk, next to my laptop in a half-dead plant. Not to dwell on the past, but to remember who I'd been, a guy who could climb a mountain and laugh at the wind. That Jake got buried for a while, but he was back now, different but stronger, shaped by the fall and the climb out. I leaned back in my chair, the city humming outside. Marco and I were closing in on a beta for our app, users trickling in, bugs and all. I'd started cooking again, hosting friends for sloppy taco nights, their laughter louder than any jazz record. Life wasn't a straight line. No ring on my finger, no grand plan, but it was honest. I'd loved, lost, fought, and won. The betrayal didn't break me. It burned away the parts that needed to go. The photo caught the light, my younger self staring back. I raised my coffee mug to him, a quiet toast. "You did all right," I said to the empty room. The recovery wasn't just surviving Emily and Cynthia. It was finding the guy who could smile like that again, scars and all. I turned back to my screen, code waiting, the future wide open. The email came on a Tuesday, subject line, beta feedback. "You're onto something." Our app, Marco's brainchild, my code, had hit 10,000 downloads, shaky but real. Users liked the transparency, the way it broke down legal jargon into plain English. Marco called, his voice crackling with excitement. "We're not Zuckerberg yet, but we're moving, man." I laughed, picturing him pacing his office, tie loose. Success felt good, not because of numbers, but because it was ours. I celebrated quietly, driving out to the Berkshires for a weekend alone. No plans, just a rented cabin, a stack of sci-fi paperbacks, and a trail map. The road stretched wide, trees blazing red and gold, the kind of fall that makes you believe in second chances. I cracked the window, let the air whip through, and turned up an old Miles Davis track. The photo from my desk was in my bag, not for nostalgia, but as a marker. I'd come far from that guy, and I wasn't done. At a diner off the highway, I overheard a couple arguing about a divorce, voices sharp but tired. It could have been me, once, stuck in that loop of blame. I didn't linger on it. I paid for my burger, left a big tip, and kept driving. Emily and Cynthia were ghosts now, their names weightless. I didn't hate them, didn't need to. They'd taught me what I wouldn't carry again. The cabin was small, all wood and quiet. I hiked at dawn, boots crunching frost, the sky so clear it hurt. At the summit, I sat on a rock, catching my breath. The world spread out like a promise. My phone buzzed. A text from Tessa. A photo of her in scrubs, grinning. "Heard your app's killing it, proud of you." I smiled, typed back, "Thanks, sis." She wasn't family, not really, but she was close enough. Back in Cambridge, I'd keep building, code, friendships, maybe even something new, someone new, when the time was right. For now, I had the trail, the music, the open road. I stood, dusted off my jeans, and started down the mountain, ready for whatever came next.